Let's get started. Hey, welcome back. My name is Avi Green. I am a healthy gourmet chef, and I love to teach my fellow mamas how to meal prep healthy gourmet food that helps them to lose weight, helps them to feel energized, and helps them to save time, all the while teaching our kids how to love healthy food. The theme today is no wheat, no problem. You know, some years ago, I was working at a gym as a personal trainer, and we got to the subject of meal planning, and I would suggest cutting back or cutting out gluten, and you would think I said to these people, no more happiness. It's never been easier than it is today to cut back or cut out altogether gluten. I have a little meal prep business where I have a menu, I shouldn't say little, over 70 items on my menu, and it's all gluten-free. You can do it, and I'm gonna show you how. So if you want to get some more information about why we should be cutting out gluten, I'm going to give you a little bit here today. We got to know the why if we're going to comply, but check out my most recent blog. It is all about this topic, and it goes into it in depth about why gluten or wheat is not the same as it was in ancient times. Okay, so you might be thinking, you know, what's wrong with wheat? Isn't that as ancient as time? Like as ancient, or you know, people have been eating wheat for thousands of years, over 10,000 years. The Bible talks about wheat being an amazing food product, and guess what? It was. It had healthy fats in it. It has protein. I should say has healthy fats, protein, minerals, vitamins, fiber. It is of a plant food. It is an amazing food. However, some of the changes in our food industry that happened over the last 100 years, and that's what I talk about in the blog, has changed the wheat. So the wheat is not the same. And because of the changes, we can look at a chart and see a drastic shift in cancer, diabetes, chronic disease. Wheat is not the only reason, but it's part of the problem. And you'll see why when you read the blog. But let's get started, because I want to keep this short, as brief as possible. Your time is very valuable. Turn the fire on. And I'd love for you to share your time with me. I appreciate it. So we're going to make 2 dishes today in this very short time. And you're going to see how easy it is to cut back on or cut out altogether the consumption of wheat or gluten. You know, it is a very inflammatory product, and it is everywhere, unfortunately. But here's a little something to make you go, Think about this. In a grocery store, where do you find wheat flour? If you're shopping for flour, wheat or white flour, where do you find it? It's on the bottom shelf. It's packaged in a paper bag, basically. It's packaged in something that's not airtight. It's just a paper sack that is glued shut, but it's not airtight, and it's on the bottom shelf. As much as we don't want to admit it, grocery stores have pests. They have rodents, rats, mice, roaches, pests, right? They manage it as best they can. Why is it that nothing's getting into the wheat? There's a reason for that. It's not food. So that's just one reason by itself that should make you think about scaling back or giving up gluten or /wheat. The most obvious answer, of course, is gluten-free breads, gluten-free pastas. We're not going to talk about that today because, for one thing, that's the most obvious answer. I have a list of at least 10 things that you can go to give up wheat or gluten, and it's in my blog, mamaavi.com is my website, that are not the gluten-free and wheats pastas and breads. And part of the reason for that is some of those options are just as bad for you. They're using very low nutrition grains. They can spike your blood sugar. So that's not what we're going to talk about. Although I will give you one real good quick hack if you do want to have pasta. But before we do that, let's talk about what we're cooking today. So we're making 2 different meals today. Both are going to be vegetarian, although you can add animal protein to it if you like, but they're both super, super satisfying. Myself, as a foodie and as a chef, I think a lot about the food that I eat, and I think about everything, not just the flavor on my tongue. I think about how it feels, and think about it like comfort food is the base of almost all comfort foods, is like pasta, noodles, breads, right? Why? Because it is comforting. It's like so satisfying. It's like the feeling as it goes down your throat, the feeling as you're chewing it, it's grounding. And those things are all wonderful, but we can find those same feelings when we're eating certain plant foods. So this right here is a kabocha squash. It's kind of ugly, isn't it? This is one of the winter squashes. I love winter squashes because of the fact they're so hardy. They also last a long time. You're going to start seeing them a lot now that it's getting to be fall. And some of them have edible skins. This is one of them where the skin is edible. And of course, the skin is where a lot of the nutrients are contained. So that's one of the reasons why I love this squash. It's kabocha squash, and we're going to use it in a place of a pasta. So I want to give you a little tip on how to prepare this. Because it's so hard and dense, it's hard to cut through. This is a little tip. Drop it in a pot of boiling water, okay, for like 5 minutes. So I'm just going to drop it from the stem into the water for like 5 minutes. That will soften the skin enough and make it easier to cut through. This is also a kabocha squash. It's an orange one. This is from the farmer's market. This is from JR Organics, one of my favorite organic farms in San Diego. And again, the skin is delicious. It's edible. It's hard to cut through, but we're working through that over here. So the other part of the other meal that we're making is going to involve eggplant. And eggplant is a very bready plant. It's hard to explain, but if you've had eggplant, you know that when you're eating eggplant, it is that kind of unctuous feeling, like it does feel like you're eating bread. So when you're selecting eggplant, here's a little tip for you. If you're buying it from the grocery store, that is already kind of aged, most likely, because the stuff from the grocery store comes from hundreds of miles away. It sits there forever. Best thing always, of course, is the farmer's market. But if you're buying it from the grocery store, look for eggplant that still has green around the stem. That will tell you that it's fresher. As you can see, as it gets older, it starts to turn brown. You want to look for an eggplant that's green around the stem, that has a smooth skin. Again, this skin is edible, but it's a little bit tough. So we're going to do half and half. We're going to I'm going to just shave part of the skin off, because I do want to get some of the benefits from the skin, but again, like I said, it's kind of tough. So I'm just going around and shaving just a bit of the eggplant. We're going to make all of this food at the same time, and you're going to see how incredibly easy and fast it is. We have our oven at 425 degrees. Take it on the stem, and now I'm cutting the eggplant into 1/2 inch rounds. Eggplant is very porous, so meaning it will soak up everything. It will soak up all kinds of flavors. And the only problem with that is that if you're going to put this on an oil-lined cookie sheet, but if you choose to pour the oil on, it's not a good idea, because it will literally soak completely right away in. And so we want to keep it. We don't want to have our oily eggplant. So I have a cookie sheet here that's already oiled with a little bit of avocado oil and a little bit of, I'm just going to very lightly tap it in there and line it up. Just going to barely get a little bit of oil on there just so it doesn't stick. Ah! Okay. We're going to line our cookie sheet with everything that we're roasting. So roasting is a great cooking technique. If you're not into it yet, get into it. It condenses the flavor, it concentrates the flavor, because it takes all the water out. And so you end up with this really delicious concentrated flavor. And so for our eggplant, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt, Himalayan pink salt, and I'm going to put some fresh or some dried chili flakes from my friend's Chon hot sauce. Okay, so we got our eggplant over there. We're going to do our kabocha squash. So I'll use this while we wait for that other one, just for the sake of time. Now, what you can see how hard it is to work with that. What you can do is you can use the seeds. In fact, I am going to use the seeds. You can use the seeds, use a spoon, and roast them with salt and eat them. So I want to not waste. But you could just also discard the seeds. So you're going to scrape with a metal spoon. You're going to scrape the seeds out, plus some of that loose flesh out of the squash. And then you will cut it into like wedges, basically. So, you know, when you think about pasta, you know pasta has all kinds of different shapes, right? There's bow ties, there's corkscrews, there's elbows. So just kind of be open-minded about this being the base of the dish, and we're gonna pretend like it's pasta. The thing is that it's gonna give you that same satisfying feeling of pasta. And again, on the same cookie sheet, I'm gonna put it in with the eggplant. I'm gonna give it a little salt. I'm gonna give it a little bit of thyme. Okay. We have 3 things that we're gonna do all at once. Heirloom tomato is gonna roast in the oven at the same time. Same cookie sheet. So this is very, very quick, easy cleanup. Okay, I'm not salting the tomato because tomato actually already naturally has a lot of salt in it, and it's going to concentrate as it roasts. Okay, check that out. Isn't that gorgeous? 425 degrees for about 15 minutes. Okay, so for the kabocha squash, whenever it's been 5 minutes, you would just simply lift it out and do exactly what you saw me do with the orange kabocha. I'm used to working with it. It's a very hard squash to get through, but for the sake of time, that was just a demo. Okay, start our sauces. We're making 2 sauces, basically. They're similar, so they have similar ingredients. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why. We need to know why if we're going to comply. If we're gonna give up something that we really like, we got to have a good reason why. So we talked about the fact that even the animals don't want it. The other thing is, unfortunately, wheat is one of the main crops that is grown in this country, and it is treated with with pesticides. Monsanto is the main company that created the pesticide Roundup Ready, and that is banned in over 17 countries. Unfortunately, it is not banned here. So unless you are eating non-GMO, organic, whole wheat that is milled in such a way that doesn't get rid of all of the healthy elements of the wheat, which is the hull and the germ and all of the parts of the wheat, unless you're eating whole grain, whole wheat, organic, non-GMO, which is very hard to find, you're going to be getting, unfortunately, the consequences of the herbicide, pesticides that are sprayed on our crops. That's another reason why. So we're heating up the pan. What we're going to do is we're going to saute some purple onion and mushrooms in the pan. I have a little bit of avocado oil and olive oil. The reason why I'm using the combination today is because avocado oil has a very high smoke point, 500 degrees to be exact. Olive oil does not. It gets damaged very easily, but I want the flavor of the olive oil. So when I mix the two together, it brings the smoke point up for the olive oil and it doesn't get damaged so easily. I'm also going to put a little pad of grass-fed butter in there for flavor. Okay, so we have our onions and our mushrooms. We don't want to overcrowd the pan. You see what we got going on here? Okay, we don't want to overcrowd the pan because then we won't get the caramelization. But what's happening here is the flavor is caramelizing. In the meantime, we're going to shave the garlic. So garlic is way up there on the scale of the most anti-inflammatory foods. Besides being delicious, we want to use it as much as possible. So what I'm using is a little mini mandolin, and I'm going to shave the garlic into these, basically these paper-thin shavings, which we are going to toast. But not yet. We're letting our OMG, I just dropped the other clove. That's okay. We don't need it for this. Okay. The other thing I want to share with you, let's see. Oh, is this hack. So if you are going to use a gluten-free pasta, this is the one that I like, that I use for my meal prep clients. It's organic brown rice and quinoa pasta. And what I do is I cook it up and I mix it half and half with the cooked pasta and raw spiralized zucchini. And so now you are getting the look of the pasta, the bite of the pasta, but much better for you. Lower in calories, higher in nutrients. Okay, so that's my little hack if you are going to do a gluten-free pasta. This is cook it up really fast because we're cooking on gas, my favorite. So it's cooking up really fast. And so we're doing a very low cleanup type of thing. And we're going to end up with at least 4 meals, I think, from what we're doing here. So this is like a really fast, easy cleanup. The meals are different. They're similar, but they're different. One we're going to do more of like a kind of a Greek feel. The other we're going to do more like an Italian feel. But both are dishes where you would expect to find maybe bread with the dish or pasta, and you're not going to miss it. I guarantee you. Okay, so we're going to season. We're going to add a little bit of oregano and black pepper, and I'm going to set it aside. So this has a nice color on it. It's nice and caramelized. I'm going to set it aside. In the same pan, we're going to add, again, olive oil and avocado oil, the rest of it. We're going to add our shaved garlic. Watch the garlic. Don't walk away from it. It's going to cook up really fast. And when you overdo the garlic, when you burn it, it has a burnt flavor. It's not tasty. So this is going to cook up really fast. At the same time, I'm going to add a whole can of tomato paste. The tomato paste is also going to get a caramelization on it because we're putting it in there without any liquid. Okay? So we have toasted garlic, tomato paste, which is so good for you. One of the few canned items that is actually really potent and delicious and good for you. So we have that going for just under a minute. Okay. Our garlic, oh, it smells so good in here. I wish you could smell it. Okay. So we have that going. And now I am going to add water just to make it into egg sauce. Okay. So this is what it looks like right now in the pan, in the nonstick pan. The tomato paste is caramelizing, the garlic is toasting. Yummy, yummy, yummy. It smells delicious. And I'm going to make a sauce with it. Just add a little bit of water. Use my whisk. Get it all together. Now we have a beautiful garlic tomato sauce. Real simple, right? Just about done, you guys. Watch what happens next. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more water. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, wee, this smells good. I'm going to add a little bit of oregano and thyme to this. Turn it off. It's done. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to add some of the sauce into a little container here. Okay. Less than half of the sauce. We're going to add our mushrooms and onions back in here. Now let's take out our vegetables. Okay. Wow, how gorgeous is that? There's the magic of TV. Of course, I roasted this a little bit ahead of time for the sake of time. But now we're going to assemble our 2 dishes. Now check this out. What we're making here is what I call eggplant stacks. Okay? And so I'm going to take I'm going to wipe out that plate, so it's not ugly, and we're going to take the eggplant. We're going to use a bit of, so I consider this more like a Greek dish. This is something that I used to make for an actual Greek family that I used to cook for. They loved it, kids and all loved it. It's super simple. You can make this so easily. You're seeing how quickly this comes together. And so we take a bit of our very plain tomato paste with toasted garlic. We take a bit of crumbled feta cheese and we just stack it up like that. One layer after another. So this is a nice, beautiful, it has that bready feel, it has that satisfying breadiness, but without any gluten or bread. And what we're gonna do with this one is we're gonna garnish it. So I have enough to make 2 of these. Awesome, right? We're gonna garnish it with fresh mint. Oh yes. If you can hear in the background, Micah is hovering. He knows he's gonna get to eat this food. Okay, take a look. How beautiful is that? Yum! Here's the other dish. The other dish, we're using our kabocha squash as a base, almost like we would pasta as a base. This is how it turns out. It roasts up really quick. Do you see that beautiful golden color, the caramelization? The taste of the squash itself is slightly sweet, pretty starchy, and it's absolutely a feel and a flavor that could replace pasta. We're going to also use our roasted tomatoes, which is a little trick that I think I showed you before. Roasting tomatoes condenses the flavor, it makes them super sweet. And then we're going to use our sauce with the mushrooms and onions. And now we have a gorgeous dish that would typically be served with pasta. We're going to add fresh basil to this one. So we have one dish that is kind of more Greek inspired. We have one that is more Italian inspired. Both are sans gluten, minus the gluten. Check this out. What do you think? Does that look amazing? Which one do you want, Micah? He's gonna have one, I'll have the other. You want the bigger one. Okay, what do you guys think? Will you do it? Will you try it? Will you think about it? Check out my blog, www.mamaavi.com, MAMAAVI.com, to find out more about the 2 inventions that revolutionized and changed wheat as we know it, and the real reasons why we need to be trying to avoid gluten or cut back on gluten as much as possible. It's hard to do, especially if you're raising kids, but I'm making it easier for you. I also have a list of at least 10 alternatives that you're going to be surprised at seeing, such as eggplant, kabocha squash. There's at least 8 others on there. Will you go check it out? Let me know. Comment below. Let me know what you thought and how you benefited. And we'll see you again next week, where we'll be talking about dun dun dun. I don't know yet.